You're listening to the Comic Crusaders Podcast. I am your host, Al Mega, CEO of Comic Crusaders and Undercover Capes. In this show, I'm sitting down with creators from all walks of life to talk about inspiration, process, the lessons they've learned, and a whole lot more. Yo, wepa! What up, man? This is your boy, Al Mega. Welcome to a brand new Comic Crusaders Podcast. Check it out, folks. Today we got some ill talent on deck. These guys is doing it. Let me talk right first up. I got to do this show because it's a two-person show today. Two folks, two legends right here. First up, writer, storyteller, co-creator of the Allincaes universe, Mr. Luke Lieberman.
Hello, sir.
And he's also all about the Rat Sonja flick stuff. Maybe at the end we'll get into that a little bit. And then, of course, we have the one, the only. He's an Academy Award winning filmmaker, writer, author, and also a co-creator of the Allincaes universe. The one, the only, Ryan Silbert. What's going on, kiddo? What's popping?
Hey there. How are ya?
I'm doing well. Thank you guys for coming on, taking some time to chit chat about this awesome book that has dropped, Alliance's Orphans, Fire. You know, it's Stan Lee. It's the universe where all you guys are working together. You know, right before he passed. Oh my God! Let's get into first, of course, origin stories. This is what this is about, folks. You don't know what these fellas is all about. So let's start with Mr. Luke since he showed up first. So Luke, where you from? Where you grew up at, and what was your first taste of fandom that made you fall in love?
So I grew up in Connecticut, outside New York. I ended up going to college in New York, and that was kind of like the Forbidden Planet in the Village was kind of my first shop. But actually, I kind of a unique way in because of my family's sort of history. My father used to control Conan the Barbarian, so he had connections to Marvel, back in the day. And Ryan knows this. I actually don't tell this to many people, but I guess here I will. He like when he was originally licensing all the Robert E. Howard stuff to Marvel, he put a clause in the deal that they had to give him a copy of everything that they published for quality control purposes. So when I was a little kid, Marvel's entire publishing line would show up at my house.
What? Oh my God!
That was my sort of. I mean, that was like how I learned to read. I learned to read reading Marvel comics. That was it. I mean, I ended up like when I graduated college, I went through because I had like I had absurd amounts of. I wasn't gonna take it all with me, so I kind of picked out to collect the issues that mattered to me, meant something to me, and the rest of them I donated to a children's hospital on my way.
Oh my God,
Los Angeles.
Those are some happy kids.
Yeah, well, yeah, I know, and you like take such care to like everything was bagged and stuff, and then you realize, I mean, they just tore into it, but who cares?
Yeah,
like you just want to be happy with it.
Of course. Oh my God. What about you, Ryan? What's going on?
Similarly, I had boxes show up, but I was fortunate because my uncle owned a comic store in Glendale in Los Angeles. So I was in New York, so everything was UPS shipped and drop shipped in. So like that's how my intro to comics kind of started. But like Luke and I talk about this a lot. Like we're like the first you too. Like we're the first generation of like local comic store people turned creators, turned like all sorts of things in the business because the comic store didn't exist prior to our generation. And I was fortunate because I lived in Manhattan for a bit, and I lived above the 58th Street Forbidden Planet, so like directly above. So I was like raised in that store, because where else do you put a kid to kill some time in New York? You put him in the park or you put him in Forbidden Planet. So similar to Luke, our love for Forbidden is like runs very deep. Very, very deep. So it's been it's my comics are still with me. So I might have to take you up on that, Luke, as like an idea as to how to donate these to a children's hospital.
Well, Ryan knows too. Like so Ryan and I are Comic-Con friends. That's how we met. He's actually
really? Wait, so you guys don't know each other for a while?
Yeah. Well, it's been I mean, what is it? Ryan?
10 years.
15 years. No, more. Yeah, 15
no, you're
years.
Right. 15 years.
I mean, he went to high school with my wife, And my wife was, now she's like deep in. I mean, she made a Blade Runner reference that was point on the other day, and I was so proud of her, because like when I met her, she had no concept of comics. Like when I introduced her to Stan, she didn't know who Stan was. She was like, "Why is this guy so popular? Like everyone seems so impressed."
Who is this guy?
But once we started going to Comic-Con, she wanted to hang out with, her friend from home, and that was Ryan. That's kind of how I met him. So we met at Comic-Con, and that's kind of where we would hang out. In San Diego.
Yeah. Okay, excellent. So how did that lead into you guys like working together? How did that all even start?
Well, it started, so Alliances is kind of look, Stan gave me my first job after film school.
How did you even meet Stan?
The day I met Stan was I was a junior at NYU Film, and I was doing a documentary on him, and he agreed to kind of sit down and let me pepper him with questions for about an hour. And then, I just kind of,
cool. And what year is this?
He was in town for the X-Men premiere, the original X-Men premiere in 2000.
Oh, wow. Check that out. Wow.
And then I worked for him after I graduated for a couple of years, and then I basically left working for him to relaunch the Red Sonja comics with Nick over at Dynamite. And then I went to law school, and it was basically after I always stayed tight. It was like we were always friends. When after I graduated law school, I was just going over to his office. I would just call his assistant and sort of find a window, and he'd be available, and I'd go over there and hang out a little bit. And we got to talking about, it ultimately ties into Orphans, because the prologue in Orphans is really kind of like the first kernel, like the first story that we created with Stan in this universe. But we started kind of coming up with things, and I realized that there was an opportunity. I realized Stan was open to creating with me. So once I saw that opportunity, like the door was open a little bit, I just started pushing on it, and you remember that thing we talked about? Okay, well, what about all this and this and this? And he engaged, he got into it. And after a couple months of that, another Comic-Con rolled around, and what I realized was that I needed to respect his time. And so I always wanted to show up whenever we were going to like fully prepared. Like, we would talk about something, then I would go workshop it, and I needed someone to workshop with. And so, it was late night, one Comic-Con after the after parties, Ryan and I had a few drinks in us, and we were rolling around to get some like really horrible food somewhere where I don't even remember where it was.
Those fun con after parties, yeah.
Yeah. And I just looked at him and I asked him if he wanted to do this with us, and he he jumped on it, and then we would have a meeting with Stan. He would tell us kind of what he wanted, and then we'd workshop it and bring it back to him, and he would keep what he wanted, throw out what he didn't, give us some more ideas, and then we'd go back to back to workshopping it and bring it back to him. And that was kind of the workflow.
Do you remember it like that, Ryan, since you guys were so intoxicated?
Yeah, I mean, you never forget the first time you eat wings with Luke, and he says, "Let's go make a universe with Stan that I've been developing for the last couple of years." Yeah, you don't forget that. You don't forget that one. I might have to memorialize it in my diary, but yeah, I revisit that often. It's but it's this thing. It's like, I talk about this. Like I'm naturally more of an introvert. Like but I kind of I'm open when it comes to like community that I feel comfortable in. And Luke's really good at this. Like Luke is extraordinary at like building what I always like the visibility of like a bullpen. He's really good at identifying talent, and he's also really good at patience. It's like he's also respectful and always asks for what he wants. And I really think that's really neat, because he's like almost fearless in that way. And that's where, you hear about the story where it's like, he would come into Stan's office. They would check in a couple of weeks later, or maybe a year later. And like, he's really good at like building trust and relationships in that way. So, that's for me when starting in a work, like collaborative environment, that's what I'm looking for in a collaborator, somebody who's got patience and trust and, is good with people. So, I remember. Oh, shucks.
You're wonderful too.
It's okay. That Venmo that showed up just now from you it has a lot of emojis that I think everybody's paying.
So how did you guys feel when it finally was at that point? Like, okay, it's right now to be out in the public. It's going to happen.
Well, so Orphans is actually the third project to come out on this. The first one came out in 2019. And we actually finished the manuscript while Stan was with us. And that's the one that we did. Yara Shahidi voiced it and came out on Audible. It's called A Trick of Light. Alliance's A Trick of Light. And then we did one a year and a half, sounds right? A year and a half later with Will Wheaton, somewhere in there. And then Orphans is, what Orphans is the first two, there's a lot of world building in there, but it was terrestrial. It was on Earth. It involved humans for the most part, and Orphans is where we kind of blew it up and just made it as sort of as big as possible. So took it into the,
let's do this.
That stuff. Go ahead.
Let me put that teaser real quick, so people could kind of start building the idea in their mind, and then I bring up the PowerPoint so we could start seeing and visualizing even better what you're talking about in Orphans. Check this out, folks. This is Fuego.
We're about to embark on the exploration of a fantastic new universe. What is more real, a world we are born into, or one we create ourselves? Excelsior!
Woo-hoo-hoo! My gosh, there's so much going on. and folks, we're going to start meeting this whole awesome universe. Bring up some beautiful art. Talk about it. Talk about the Orphans now. Talk about building this book. You got two of the dopest artists in the business on it too. My gosh. I mean, talk about this, baby.
This is Sleeman. He drew Spawn, and Ryan, you can give. I think his credits offhand.
Bendis's Action Comics. Tons of creator-owned stuff. He just did a horror series. I blank on the name of it, but he's got a real knack for violence but really also for the personal kind of nature of humanity. It's like an amazing thing. And
hold on. Go back one. All right. So this is Samsi and Little Boy, and they're killing some Vaptors. Vaptors are the villains in our world. After the Hive is destroyed, they were the Hive's kind of enforcers, foot soldiers, but now in the power vacuum, they want to come in and try to take over themselves. Little Boy is operating. So Little Boy is he's a little boy, right? But he's from a race of giants. So he's like a 10-foot tall child. And he's a genius. He doesn't know his own strength. He's a genius. He's got a lot of potential. He wants to lead, but he's also, doesn't really have good control or regulation of his emotions. I mean, he's still a kid. And Samsi, they don't actually know each other here just yet. Like Samsi's kind of saving his ass, but he doesn't know it. Samsi's
cool,
more
yes.
Samsi's more like our samurai. She's kind of like the original Orphans. Maybe we should give a little bit. So the reason they're called the Orphans is that the Hive, which was introduced in A Trick of Light and New Reality, and in the prologue here that we did with Bill Sienkiewicz, the Hive would destroy a planet. They'd take it over. But when they did, they would keep one member of the species. So each of them, like, so Little Boy, everyone else, every other member of his species has been wiped out. He's the only one left. He's a lone survivor. The same thing with Samsi, same thing with basically all of our characters except for the human. They're all lone survivors. They're all the last of their kind.
Okay, beautiful. And why go that last of the kind route? So they literally, there's no other versions of their people throughout.
Correct. They are, and that's
they all got the Superman syndrome. I'm the last of my kind.
Yeah, well, and they were sort of held on almost like a zoo, right? Like they were sort of studied like by the kind of biologist Zal, who's a member of the Hive, and she's they're very, the Hive is interested in adaptations and sort of what makes each species unique and what they can take from it. That's part of the reason they keep them alive, is sort of, it's to experiment but they became, because they were all on this ship together, they became kind of like a found family.
Gotcha. All broken souls.
Yeah.
And who is this little creature here? What is this? This is scary too. Going with a gat on his back like that. That's something you would see in Brooklyn.
Yes. This is our nod to our New York roots here. This is Critter, and if anybody spent some time in lockdowns in New York, that things were coming out of those sewers like you've never seen. I mean, this was you were doing some of the iterations on Critter during that point. Critter is sort of the muscle of the group. He has probably the intellect of like what would be like a 7 and 8 year old child, but he is muscular and is a real fighter and an enforcer. But he has no language skills. He's like kind of like Lilo and Stitch, if you know that kind of Disney cartoon. It's kind of got that vibe to it.
He's their pet monster.
He's like their pet monster, exactly, because you need a pet monster in space
with a gat on his back.
Yes, yeah. Well, because the thing is that one of the things, so this piece is Bill's prologue, which is what Luke was alluding to earlier, which is some early material that we had developed with Stan. So this prologue is sort of the thesis for the Alliance's universe as a whole, and kicks off the Orphan story. But when we jump forward, they've already been a group together, kind of this ragtag group of survivors for quite some time. So when we're seeing them here, this is when they're being freed from that zoo that Luke was talking about. And then later, they're sort of like pulling off heists, etc. So like, you see the guy on the back, like, they're using Critter because they kind of have this kind of rhythm where they're surviving in this post-Hive galaxy. And their survival skills are coming out.
I would just like to point out that Critter is eating someone here.
Yeah, right here, right? Yeah, I see.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Right. So they were held captive in this environment.
Snacks too,
Yeah, I mean, he's hungry.
But with Bill's art, what's incredible is you can you get this sense of history for all these characters. Like they each didn't just jump out of nowhere.
Yeah,
look at this page. God.
This is Haze on the right, and Haze is he's from a gas planet, kind of like Jupiter or Saturn, and he can, on the gas planet, they want to be able to lift up and drop down into different cloud strata, so he can make himself denser and drop down, or expand himself and lift up, and he can fit into any cup he can make. He's made out of gas. He's made out of vapor. And he's a sarcastic, bastard. That's, but part of it is out of the pain. Say again?
So hopefully he doesn't smell like methane.
Yeah, I don't think we've actually talked about it. I mean, he smells. We've established that he smells. I don't know that we've decided like what yet.
And who's the other guy? Who's that?
That's Critter.
Oh yeah, that's
Critter.
Critter in his earlier form when he was in Bill's rendition of him. Which is when it's really fun to be able to do these kinds of books where, I mean, this is my first graphic novel, but like I always love those books when we're talking like different artists rendering different characters, or like, you know how you could like, you know, the compilation annuals where it's like just different artists on like every 6 pages. What's really neat about this was that it was fun because we're revealing Alliance's characters for the first time visually, and we got to see 2 different artists interpret them, which was kind of
And how did you feel about seeing those characters you feel come to life in that form?
Well, I mean, we were lucky enough to have the right artists doing it. You know, I mean, that's kind of part of like you know, when you're working with Bill, you have, I mean, first of all, there's kind of have what you picture in your head, and you're discussing it with Bill and kind of the way it was originally conceived. But then you got to kind of let Bill make it his own, because you don't want to shackle his imagination. You want him to dream up, you know, the best he can do. This is Razel. This is Razel. Excuse me. This is our villain. He's an apex. So the Vaptors I talked about before, he's kind of like the head of them. And the Vaptors, when they come of age, when they reach adolescence, they drop 9 of them into a pit, and the 3 of them that survive that pit get to keep living. And he is kind of like the alpha, and he sees himself as like an apex predator. Like they will eat you. They look at everything else as a lower life form. And like the way you eat a chicken, he would eat any of our characters, and he prefers them alive. So, and you know, but he has this sort of idea of himself that he's sort of like entitled to do it because he's an apex predator. It's the same way like a lion isn't going to really question the morality of eating a, you know, gazelle.
One of the things in Alliances that we've always, like, what we're striving for is this sort of like merger of biology and tech, right? It's like biotech on our kind of earthly plane. And one of the things with Equal that's really neat is that like you see how he's designed and the apex predator nature of him. He has like this primal kind of drive, and it's one of the reasons actually we focus a lot on his backstory in this story in Orphans, because it's important to understand, you know, where he's come from. But he's employed, or, you know, works for this merger of biotech, which is the Hive at its ultimate form. So that's sort of like where we're always going with Alliances when we're designing stuff and thinking about it, is, you know, how would biology and technology interact in a cool way.
And what a segue, right? Picture wise, because look at that. That's a perfect example, right?
Well, this is where Sleeman really, you know, can run with it, because he's got all that Spawn experience and the Punisher and all that kind of stuff. You know, he can go there.
Well, I mean, I guess we could also so the stakes here, like in the prologue, we meet the Inventor, who's a character that we've met in some of the previous iterations. Although I do want to make clear that we wrote Orphans as a jumping on point, so you don't have to have read I mean, you're certainly welcome to, but you don't have to have read the earlier stuff in order to jump on here. This is kind of the point. It's its own boot, so to speak.
It's the wrong one.
Yeah, exactly. The Inventor would just sort of invent these things, and you know, it's kind of one of the themes that we discussed with Stan, was this idea that you get so sort of blinded by the idea of creating things that you don't always really think through all the sort of unintended consequences and all the ways that stuff might be used. So the reason this sort of ties in here is because what you're seeing is a gravity wave wash over our characters, because the Inventor created something called the Mammoth to siphon power, to kind of power the Hive's galactic empire. And in doing that, he was feeding off of the Maw, which is this supermassive black hole in the center of the galaxy. And he created a feedback loop that is starting to make the black hole unstable. And as the black hole gets unstable, it's throwing off these gravity waves, which are twisting space-time and driving everyone crazy. And when you get hit with one, you sort of, you know, time and space fold in on itself, and you sort of, you know, things can get a little metaphorical, which is sort of what you're seeing here. I mean, you're seeing the characters ride through a gravity wave.
Yeah, man, definitely. Something is going on. And look at homie here with those old school image shackles. It reminds me of. I love him.
Well, that's William. That's our human. That's the human character in this, and he was he's from the lore. He's the main character from Trickle Light. This is his dad. And at the end of New Reality, we see we sort of see the origins of his powers in New Reality. And actually, in the end of this book, in Orphans, one of the special features, we have a prose chapter from New Reality, so you can see the origin story where William got his powers. But he's sort of like the reason he launched himself into space because his powers made him a danger to the people he cares about. And he's in space he's a man lost in space when we meet him. He's there to try to figure out how to sort of cure himself from his powers and try to figure out where they came from.
So he's not essentially an orphan then, because I'm here thinking.
No, he's the only one that's not an orphan. Okay. But he feels bad because he's kind of leaving his son to be an orphan.
But in a New Reality, one of the kind of like things that like we worked on with Stan in a New Reality specifically was this idea of like what happens to online communities when they disappear, like kind of like Aquaman, like digital or Namor, like digital Atlantis, like what happens when CompuServe disappears and all of that kind of discussion boards disappear and what happens to those worlds. And William was a creator of one of those early internet communities that kind of blew up. So he sort of, in a sense, did orphan, like, metaphorically, a whole society on Earth, and then he kind of left, with his to go search for his.
But he got twisted with one of the inventor's inventions.
He's had a journey, and here's Critter again.
Yeah, look at he's a scary looking dude. I ain't playing.
That's Rascal. Rascal's our pilot. Yeah. She's super jaded. She because when the inventor took off, he told the orphans that they needed to collect he had all these inventions that he left behind, and he destroyed the Hive. So there's a power vacuum, and whoever controls his inventions and finds them and can use them will control the galaxies. So he left it to the orphans to find them, and Rascal's kind of pissed about this. Like, she doesn't really think that this should be their job. She's not really she's not as, where someone like Little Boy is kind of lionizes the inventor and thinks he's this great hero for destroying the Hive. Rascal sees him as kind of irresponsible, and she doesn't really trust technology.
Yeah, great.
But she loves her family.
Thank you. Yeah, I like Rascal because also she's sort of a real throwback to like what we've been looking at when we were trying to develop Orphans specifically, which is like those early 50s timely, Tales of Suspense sci-fi serials. And like she's she feels like she's ripped out of that, which in a way is like the most pure form of what we were trying with this book, which is to give it that kind of feel.
Agreed. Wonderful character. Fell in love with the character.
Thank you. Yeah.
Man. Anyway,
really
people read the book. man. Anyway, so what? Look at this. Look at this. I love how this looks. It really looks like he's looking at a hologram. I mean, the art behind that and the coloring.
Yeah. Well, actually, we should talk about the colorist. He did a brilliant job.
Yeah.
All right.
I mean, there's a few but the way you can see the light from the hologram, he did a brilliant job.
He understood really again, that's the other side of the coin. So like the two things we were from inspiration wise, because we just didn't think it was being done right now, which is looking at we all want to remake X-Men over and over and over. How many times can you do that? Right. So we all know the stories of the 60s, kind of the whole and Marvel stuff. Right. So we were kind of moving a little bit further backwards, but also what we really loved is Mobius and his work with Stan with Silver Surfer and stuff like that. And that kind of European vibe, which is what I think Jorge really just nailed it with Sleeman's art in that sense, giving it that Euro original graphic novel kind of text.
I've been enjoying Euro looking books.
Oh,
look at this. But from the Cine book, they have some whole line of books, comedy, enjoying that are in there. So they're quite enjoyable, different. I like the smell of those books too.
They do.
Funny
smell
you
good.
should say that. Funny you should say that.
They do. Those books smell different than the books printed in the United States.
Right. The Europeaning.
That European ink.
When you smell it, you gotta have wine.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, a little wine and cafe.
So are you gonna say what happened? Are we gonna have some good ink on the physical copy of this book, Luke? Are we gonna be smelling the European ink?
I mean, I think, I gotta be like being straight. Printing's hard, man. It's a challenge right now. The printers are all behind. There's like a paper shortage. I mean, I don't know if the fans don't need to know this, but it's actually a lot harder than it looks. You can't really print stuff over in China
fans should
anymore.
Understand though, because it's like you get frustrated when your book is delayed as a fan.
Yeah.
When it doesn't show up in your pull list that week, and you're like, what happened? Like they're missing their deadlines, and it's like, no, like books are like. Dynamite is a champion because they got us in 2022.
Talking about Red Sonja for a minute. I know it's a little bit off topic, but like that was a decision, right? I mean, like we had to decide whether we were going to take the bite because printing in North America is about 40% more, and that directly impacts what you can make on the book. It's not like these books have huge margins, It's not like there's a lot of profit in them. And we had to decide whether we were going to let the books come out late and whatnot, but Nick, the publisher at Dynamite, was like, nope. Number one, you keep the fans happy. Number one, you service the fans. So we took the hit, but I mean, it just is what it is.
That's what Dynamite does, but this is a Dynamite book, no pun intended, like this is a great book, for real. It's beautiful. I mean, look at this one panel here. Look at that color. I can't wait to have monitors like that, for real. I'm waiting for the day, guys. Come on.
I think it's like next year.
Right?
I mean, they have new iPads came out today. I mean, we might be.
Who knows, bro? Who knows?
I want that. Like, I was watching one of the MCU films the other day, and like, I never really caught this, but like Tony Stark like unfolds a map that's like digital. As I was like, wow, that's wild. Like, it's like a physical thing that like he just can fold up and just. It's
unbelievable. It's coming, bro. I'll invent it tomorrow. After a couple of pods, after I added the pod.
That's all right. We'll talk. We got to put a patent on it.
You know what I mean? All right. Look at this whole page here. This has that whole 90s This has like an X-Men vibe to it. Even it's crazy.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, we got Ryan and I have deep influences, and obviously we know, kind of what the sort of foundation all this was. So. This was something made by fans for fans. There's something that Ryan talks about a lot that people kind of don't realize is that Stan was a fan himself of a lot of stuff. I mean, he didn't like read his own work like a fan or anything, but he was fans of like part of the reason we started Alliances and audiobooks is because he was a fan of like the old radio serials. He grew up on that stuff. And there was, I mean, he was like a huge fan. He could rip off Edgar Allan Poe. Like he can just recite The Raven. And he would at random times. Like Stan had his own sort of influences in fandom.
Look at homie with the armor here too.
This is cool stuff because we don't usually get to show the character designs of Sleeman, but this is very early sketch stuff that he put together. So this is fun stuff to see, just because it kind of shows how for anybody who's looking to make a book, like the kind of first stage of getting to see your characters.
Gotcha. Look, that's beautiful. Look at that. Whoo! I mean, how were you feeling as you were getting these, and how did you even explain it to them? I mean, how was that session like? Okay, guys, this is what we're looking for.
Well, because also with Sleeman's, he's in Poland, so everything was his English wasn't his first language, so there was a little bit of a hurdle there, but he got it. He understood.
Okay.
It's not easy to making, new character designs, especially because, with our work with Stan, we have a lot of stuff. Like we have like basically like what's, sketches and ideas and, it's kind of like the Marvel handbook for alliances type thing.
Yeah.
Or like who's who kind of thing. But, the thing is that with the designs, when the initial projects we have were intended to be things where fans could imagine what the characters look like in their head, because they're audio driven and they were specifically related. That's like one of the ideas was that the fans could be their own artists in their imagination. So this is, a heavy lift to start, really putting pen to paper on some of these characters. So
is that really how you picture him though? Okay. I mean, and then you say he's only still a child, so he's still growing, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my God. How tall can he grow? Do we know that?
He's probably about 10 feet now, so probably about 20 feet tall, something like that.
Couple of thousand years for 10 feet. That's not bad.
Yeah.
Holy
yeah,
crap.
that's the other thing. They live a long time.
So they
like
age
when we
slowly.
say he's a child, he's like 50.
No.
All right.
They just develop slow.
But how old is he technically? I mean,
he's 50.
Not 50, but that's it. It's just 50. He has the mentality of a 10, you said, right?
They live about a millennia. So
All
like
right.
if a human was going to live 100 years, it'd be 5. He lives 1,000 years. So 50 is, they just develop more slowly. But I mean, we kind of love first of all, what is time, right? What's a year? A year is how long it takes the earth to go around the sun. That's not really anything that means anything to people who don't live here. If you live in the center of the galaxy, you have an entire different concept of time.
And that is something we're really looking to explore, because that is, if you saw that video, or the people, you guys all heard it, if you heard it or saw it, it's, what is the world, is it the one we're born into, or the one we make for ourselves? And like time is a huge component of that, from a thematic standpoint. So, what Luke's talking about is the kind of thing we really want to explore as we're continuing to build out.
And as you were mentioning,
here's your sci-fi cereal. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
love it.
That's Samsi again.
Look at that design, sick.
Yeah, that's the Jirashni. That's got its own qualities. We like. Some of the thought process behind Samsi was kind of like Strider, kind of like we wanted the idea of almost like Lord of the Rings type character in space. That was kind of the concept behind Samsi.
Like a space knight of sorts.
Yeah.
I love it though. Look at that sword. That ain't nothing to play with right there.
Well, that's the idea of how that sword is sort of like the manifestation of a lot of the themes, which is like, with technology, you can always upgrade, right? Or make something fresh, like the new iPhone or whatever it is in space, the new Jyoti or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
And what she does is she carries around that sword for many, 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 many battles, never upgrades, because she wants to remember. She wants to remember the past. She wants to have that feeling of that physical thing, because she thinks that's informing, sort of her journey, which, if you read the book, you'll see how that kind of plays out.
It becomes a trademark. It comes this chick with the sword. Oh my God, hold on.
It's got history. She likes that it has history, like it's got its own energy.
Man, that's a trademark of death right there. That's what that sword is.
You see trademark things in the cosmic. Yeah.
Oh man.
The Vaptors have a very severe enforcement mechanism for infringement.
Exactly. No BitTorrent there.
That's William. So he's the human. He has the ability, because he merged with the Cypher, to sort of see and interact with the electromagnetic spectrum. So he can dial it down and look at things in X-ray and infrared. He can see. That's one of sort of the ideas that I love, is that humans can only see like a tiny sliver of the spectrum. There's electromagnetic waves on either side that we can't perceive, and then the idea that you can sort of interact with them, because there's electromagnetic fields everywhere.
Oof. So what? Okay, so the book is out now, right?
Yeah.
Available at LCS everywhere, right?
LCS have them. Bookstores get them next week, and
man. There's always Amazon too. Yeah,
that's what Dynamite do. So what's in store then for the future of Alliances? What's going on with it? What else you guys gonna do? We getting an animated feature? Are we getting a feature film? What's popping?
Yeah. Those things would all be lovely. What I would talk about creatively, because we're not ready for announcements just yet, and I don't want Ryan to tase me when he sees me, so I'm gonna keep my mouth shut. But what I would say is that we're gonna keep we've been like, the first story kind of laid the first brick on this universe, and then we saw where it came from. The new reality is kind of a prequel, and Orphans is a major expansion. And now we've kind of, at this point, like, we've got a couple areas of the universe, right? We've got kind of the cosmic story and the story on Earth, and we're going to push forward with the story on Earth, and we're going to push forward and explore with the cosmic story, and they are going to meet at some point.
You hear this? At some point.
Look,
It's going to get crazy.
The thing with universe, like, and this is stuff that you know, Alec, it's like when you're building out new things, there's like this push to expand and to like interconnect always. And for us, we're always looking to think about like fan service in the sense of like, how can a new person get on board with this? Because we also are very focused on quality. So we're not putting out like 30 books, a year. And we're not asking for there to be a massive wiki on these projects. Like, it would be great to invest time if you see and you want to listen to everything and read everything. But we also want everything to be manageable and approachable, just the way Stan did it back in the day.
Yeah,
like
accessible.
It doesn't have to be. Yeah, we want to be able to come on and off the ramp as you see fit with your interest with alliances. But for us, it's also a genre like mix and match. So like, we love just mixing and matching the genres. And in Orphans, you see it a little bit, right? Certainly in Trick of Light, you see it. So it's like, that for us is fun because we love different genres of our own interests.
Yeah. We're fans making stuff. We're fans making stuff for fans.
Well, obviously, because we're going to talk about the future now. So before I get to you, Luke, let's start with Mr. Ryan. So what's in the future for yourself? I mean, any other projects you're working on that we need to be aware of right now that we need to go, make it rain on? What's going on?
Alliances is the focus. I've got my horror kind of push now. I'm doing a Stephen King project that's being adapted, but that's for me. It like Alliances is because it's a playground where we can, like I was saying, I could throw in my interest of horror or like tech, futurist stuff with Luke, and like Luke throws in his like physics background. I mean, surprise, Luke is also a physicist. It's like shocking what he can do.
Yeah, but what don't you do, Luke?
That's what we can like wrap. The amateur physicist, but it's better than me. Like, let me tell you, my physics are like, I thought that, a toolbox, you could be like Forge in the X-Men and you can just build anything you want, like with a toolbox. I didn't realize you had to go to school for that kind of stuff. But like, anyway, that's for me, is like just keeping on alliances and throwing in all my interest into that.
Luke is one of those guys. Let me get a corkscrew and a fork and I'll make something out of it.
That is Luke. That is exactly right. He could fix anything. But Luke's in Bulgaria right now, so
Yeah, man.
Yeah, I can't see much past like 2 weeks. We're trying to wrap a film. Once that's over, then I'm gonna once the film's over, then Ryan and I are gonna start jamming again on alliances. But at least while I'm in Europe, and we're doing night shoots right now, and we're almost done. I mean, this is day 47, I think, of like a 54-day shoot. So there's not much left, man. We're getting there. I mean, we got some
everything's on schedule.
Yeah. I mean, MJ knows how to make her days, and we have an on-set producer, Les, who's they just Les has made a million movies, so they just kind of know what they're about. And Millennium's shooting it on their own studio, so they have a lot, total control out here.
Oh my
gosh,
what
they're doing. Yeah,
I cannot wait for this film.
Well, I've been waiting for it for a while, so I mean, seeing it happening is definitely a special experience. My wife's here actually with me. We put her in the film. I think she might be dying right now. Actually, while we're talking. I think she's.
You're missing her death scene.
I mean, spoilers here. Come on.
I love it. I can't wait, dude, Luke, for real. Good luck on that. Good luck, both of you, on this Alliances universe, because it is fire. I am digging it. So before we go, I'd like to end with some type of two things. Flowers is first. So thank you guys, both of you, for being such amazing creators and being bold and sharing of yourself. You know what I mean? Doing so much. Like, damn, Luke, you do a lot. You're very inspiring. You too, Ryan. You know what I mean? Salute to both of you as entrepreneurs, as creators, and as everything. Bless you guys, and thank you for entertaining me and so many millions of people for your works, man. It definitely
Thank
means a
you,
lot.
sir.
Bless you guys on this continued journey.
Thank you.
And
Thank
so,
you, sir.
and then following, what's up, man? Give some type of advice for kids also trying to step into the game. I mean, in this day and age, like you did. So, Luke.
Well, like there's a couple things. One, if you want to write, just write. I mean, it's like I was talking to a girl on set that just got out of college, and she's like, I got writer's block. I don't know what that means. Like, just sit down, plug in, and it doesn't have to be good. You're just doing it for yourself. You don't have to show it to anybody else right now. Just get it. Just get moving. Like, just don't make excuses for yourself. Don't. You got to be your own harshest critic. And that's the other thing I would say is a lot of people, they want praise. So especially when they're starting out, they're like showing stuff to the people who tell them how wonderful it is. And, those people might be your friends, but they're not necessarily like who you need to be listening to, because you probably have, especially if you're starting out, some things you need to work on. Now, I mean, there's also people who are, maybe giving you, bad faith or unconstructive criticism. Ignore those assholes too. Just focus on the people who can give you constructive criticism, and find mentors, find people who, do what it is that you want to do, and learn from them, and respect their time, and do your homework, and don't ever, I mean, the most upset Stan ever got at me is when he felt like I was taking his time for granted. You can't do that, right? Their time is precious, and you have to.
Were you late?
Disrespectful.
Were you late?
I wasn't late. I hadn't done my homework. You know what I mean? Don't show up without your homework done, right? For real. I mean, it's like, but if mentors will teach you, like if they, people who have reached a certain point and a certain level, they want to pass it on, and they want to pass it on to someone who they think are gonna do amazing things with it. So they will teach you if you give, and be a good listener. Don't tell them everything you know. They don't want to hear about what you know. You don't know anything. Listen to what they want to teach you.
And shut the fuck up, folks. And listen.
Yeah.
Right? Bottom line. What about you, right? What's up advice you give them kids trying to come up?
I mean, the come up is hard always, but I think that the thing you don't see, that you can't see through the past, like the career you have is always in your rear. Like you don't develop a career. You just kind of follow your passion, and then you move in that direction. And all of a sudden you realize you're like, oh, wait a minute, in the rear view, I did a bunch of different kinds of things. But if you love something, find different ways of getting into it. I loved comics always, I loved writing always. So what did I do? I went and did a fanzine that I built out of Prodigy, around comics. It's and then you build an understanding of the medium because you're writing about it. Right. And, you find communities in different ways, like podcasts or conventions, and nothing replaces the local comic store. Luke and I met at the convention. Luke, developed his relationship with Stan in person, that kind of communication style. Even if you're, like I said before, I'm naturally more introverted. I don't come off that way, but I show it, differently. I show up differently, but it's something you have to find the community. And, like you said, show up on time, and also what Luke and I always talk about is finding people who are passionate about, your work or your project, not necessarily giving you the praise, but people who are willing to get into it with you and try something different. Nick at Dynamite's and his team there is incredible because they'll try something different. We're doing some different things with this book in terms of its release. And that's, fun for us. It's we could have done single issues. We want to do graphic novel, or doing bookstore releases, or doing different kinds of approaches to it. And people who are willing to take risks with you together and jump into that pond together, that's the fun of being in the creative entertainment space, my opinion.
Ooh, that's what I forgot to ask before we go. I need to know something here too. So that way people could take that advice and shake your hand saying thank you, because that shit is truth. All right? Where you guys going to be? No, I'm saying
where we're going to be.
Yeah, where you guys going to be? You guys going to do any cons, with the few that are left?
We just did New York. We will probably
you guys were at New York?
Diego.
I missed you
in
New York. Where were you?
We did Midtown. And then we did a signing at Forbidden Planet, or I didn't. Ryan did. I was off to here by then. But,
yeah,
man. And we did a panel. There. Yeah.
What do you thought about New York this year?
I'm always kind of look. I grew up in around New York, so it was just a treat to go to New York. I'm always kind of more of a fan of San Diego, just because it's kind of a bigger convention in a smaller town, so it like takes over it becomes like Comic-Con City in San Diego. In New York, it's like once you're outside the Javits Center, you're in New York, man.
Yeah,
New York is
right. Wouldn't it be fun if they closed down that area and just open some party shit like San Diego? It'd be a ball.
Yeah, but they won't. Because it's New York.
I like San Diego in a different way, but honestly, my New York convention experience, I'd rather be like in the basement of like that weird dirty Penn Station hotel, like, and, or like I go to like conventions like in Queens and stuff. Like I try to find like kind of the sort of off the beaten track conventions that are still going on. For me, that's like the interesting stuff for me on the East Coast. But New York Comic Con's cool. Like, I mean, it's got its own little vibe going. And what I think is neat about it is Artist Alley is amazing. Like, you can't. San Diego doesn't hold a candle to that Artist Alley.
That was crazy. This year.
Yeah.
It was crazy. Yeah, talk about it. So, what convention are you guys going to be at any part of this year where people could check you out? And will there be copies of the book? Anything? What's going on?
Well, copies of the book should be everywhere. I'm once I get back from Bulgaria of all friggin' places, which is where I'm at, I'm probably gonna like pass out for a month, and then I don't think I'm traveling anywhere.
You're gonna hibernate.
Once I'm done with this.
Humans can hibernate now, apparently. So you're gonna hibernate for a month.
I got 3 kids too, and I should probably see them a little bit. I haven't seen them in like 3 weeks.
A minute each child. That's all.
You tell me where the conventions we should go, because that's like you're on the East Coast, so you send me on the social media where I should be going, because
definitely there's one coming up, but they probably still have space and they could use your star power, man. Up in Rhode Island Comic-Con, which I love to go to. I go as press as well. We'd love to see you guys on site at the table selling these books. That way I could get myself a signed copy. That would be nice.
Actually, Ryan, I think we can probably get him a sign. I mean, yes, but Ryan, I think we can get him a signed copy, can't we?
Yeah, we'll get you that. But Rhode Island sounds like a fun road trip, so I'm down for. I'm in Woodstock, so I'm down for that.
There you go. Well, I'm still in Brooklyn, having a good time. You guys are having a great time. Thank you guys for doing what you do, because Alliance is fire, Orphans is fire. Great story. I mean, you got legends joining this book. It's a dope story. So great job overall on the story, the characters. I felt for the characters and kind of felt heartbroken as well in this. Oh man, you guys broke my heart as the story. So it means you did a good job. I actually felt for what was going on. So you connected me. So it's not something that's easy to do. So.
Thank you, sir.
Great book, folks. You got to go pick it up at your favorite local comic shop today. Go to Amazon. It's a graphic novel. Well, you got to get it. Just get it. All right. And then you got to follow my man Luke at Red Sonja Official. Yes, as it sounds. All right. You heard him talking about a movie, so maybe just go there and you get some more hints about what he's talking about. All right. And then. Of course, over here you can follow Ryan, Ryan Silbert on Twitter, Luke _Lieberman. There's also Alliances, UNIV. And on Instagram, you go to Alliance Universe, Ryan Silbert, and then also Luke _Lieberman. Check them out, follow, show the love, tell them Comic Crusaders Mega sent you. All right, guys, thank you again so much for your time. We definitely appreciate it. Continue success on this awesome journey, yo. And with that, you know what it is, folks? Alto tells you what to do. And with that, I'm Omega. These amazing talented men, the future legends. Hasta la próxima, mi gente. Wepa! Thank you for listening to the Comic Crusaders Podcast. If you like the content, please subscribe and turn on notifications. Also, please visit comiccrusaders.com and our extended podcast family over at undercovercapes.com. And also, make sure to download the Comic Crusaders app on the Google Play Store today.